1.4, February 6th, 2023 of the Oldcast. Got with me our head coaching staff for really the whole club. I mean, I know we focus a lot on D1, but these guys have been coaching all the way top to bottom. We had a great day of rugby on Saturday out at Nixon Lane. D3 won 57-22 over Harlequins 3. D2 won 78-5 over DARC, and that's their first side. That's their primary side. And D1 won 37-14 over Harlequins 1 in a match that was shortened probably by about 10 minutes because of an injury to Tyler Spitz. Looked really serious. They mobilized the neck, called an ambulance. Thankfully, within a day, he was standing up. He's in a neck collar. I don't know the specifics, but he said he's going to be just fine. So that's a huge relief to anybody that was watching the match. Lach, how you doing?
Mate, I'm doing great. Thanks very much for having us here. It's I love these podcasts, and yeah, mate, it's a good timing. Good timing.
The kids call it the show, which cracks me up, man. You know, CJ, how are you doing?
Oh no, I'm also fantastic. Any chance to speak rugby, I'm always interested. So no, thanks for having me on as well.
And for the people out there, CJ and his missus are brand new parents. Congratulations, mate. Amelia, right?
Amelia, yeah, thank you. Yeah, if I look really tired or if I make a lot of mistakes, it's because I'm exhausted. So I'm sorry.
That's fantastic. We're Americans. We don't know enough about rugby to know if you made a mistake. So I've watched the Huns for a really long time. I realize that the Quins are improved, but they're not the top of the table. Regardless, that was one of the best days of rugby I can recall watching, and the streams are amazing. I mean, that I can plug my phone into my computer and watch you guys in my living room is just amazing. But how did you guys feel as coaches watching the Huns all the way top to bottom play on Saturday? Lach, you go first.
Oh, mate, first off, I feel incredibly proud and feel very fortunate and lucky to be involved with the club, to be honoured with the head coaching role. I take it very seriously. Saturday was the culmination of a lot of hard work through the whole course of the season. We had a very disrupted training week, heavy ice storms here in Central Texas. I know myself and several of the club players were without power. So for the guys to rally, Tuesday night, we didn't get to train, which is obviously unusual. And that was tough for quite a few of the guys who missed their routine. The ice storms, there was just too much ice on the roads. It was too dangerous to drive. So we made the decision not to hold a training session. That obviously hindered our preparation. But Thursday night, the boys rallied, even though it was still a lot of people without power. They got themselves out there, and we had a really good training session. Obviously CJ couldn't make it, but he was very busy delivering a baby. Congratulations, mate, on that.
Thank you.
I was just so proud of the boys' efforts on the weekend. It's the first time we've got three really competitive sides firing at the same time. I thought D3. That's got huge potential, that team. I think they got a chance to make the playoffs if they keep performing, if they keep coming out to training, and we can keep putting that level of a squad out there. They're a very, very competitive team. So I'm excited about their prospects for the rest of this season. D2, over and above my expectations. I thought all three forward packs, I mentioned that when talking to the players in the club. I thought all three forward packs dominated their opponents, which is, necessary. It's the first step in getting success in the game. And I thought overall it was probably close to our best performance for D1 this season. That's definitely a much, much different Dallas Harlequin side than the one we played 6 points on in the pre-season. They've got several Jackals players in there. They've got some imports as well they've brought in. So they were a much more competitive outfit. But having said that, I didn't think they didn't have a sniff in our game. I thought we, apart from an intercept try, they only put one try on us. And they didn't look like they were going to score anymore. It was a really good team defensive effort. a great performance. And I thought also our attack, our systems of patterns of play really started to click, and we started to get good go forward, good quick recycle ball, and we were constantly shifting the point of attack and putting them under pressure.
You know, I love watching the scrum push the other team around, and that meant a lot to me. We'll come back to this in a second. CJ, we were texting a little bit. I was really excited to see some of the things the backs did, but you were keeping a critical eye on everything as a coach. What did you think of Saturday's top to bottom performance?
I mean, I wish I'd had the time, you know, obviously with the baby now, I'm just trying to squeeze in a game is tough. Unfortunately, I just watched D1, so I can't really comment on D2 or D3, but I can say from all the training sessions and the effort those boys have been putting in, it doesn't surprise me that it's finally starting to pay dividends and we're seeing these great results coming. I think the one thing that's impressed me so much with that D2, D3 sides is just the amount of effort and enthusiasm to every single practice. You know, it can some guys, it can be tough if you don't make D1, that you feel kind of let down, or you feel like you should be playing up. But at the moment, our teams are so competitive that, you know, trying to even make a D2 squad now has become a challenge. So to see these boys doing so well and putting in all this effort each and every practice, I'm really glad that they're starting to see rewards for that. And I hope they continue to do that and continue to grow. So yeah, that's for D2, D3. But for D1, obviously I was watching like you were, Bill, online. And I was very proud. And like Locke said, I think it was probably as close to our best performance this season as we probably have given. And I thought what we've kind of been talking about in the past couple of weeks is a kind of bend but don't break attitude on defense, where we were giving up. I mean, the Blacks game and the Reds game, we gave up a lot of line breaks really easily and led to really cheap tries. And I thought against the Quins, we were making them work really hard. Obviously, they got an intercept try and these things happen, but it was us trying to shift the ball and trying to move it to a different point of attack. But I'm hugely impressed with how much better our defense has gotten. Guys are working harder off the ball, which is something, again, we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks. We have to get our work rate up if we want to compete with the best sides in the union. But as far as the backs are concerned, again, extremely proud. I thought they moved the ball the best I've seen all season. The decision-making was way better than in previous weeks. We did have a little bit of a silly moment from our 9, from Christian. But these things happen. He's obviously apologized. He understands he made a mistake. But outside of that, really one of our best performances. And our ability to move the ball wide and quickly makes us a very difficult side to play against at the moment. So I'm looking forward to playing against the Reds and the Blacks and really trying to test where are we at really, so that'll be the real tests.
Yeah, Christian had sort of a feral tackle, right? Where
he
led with the shoulder.
Yeah, he did the Owen Farrell. He just
exactly.
put the shoulder in just to let him know he was there. The problem is you can't get away with that. Like that close to the AR, you're going to get caught. So, unfortunately, he got caught out.
It puts us under too much pressure having to play a man short. I mean, and that's a discipline issue that he, as a young fella, he's aware of. He's critically taking ownership and responsibility, which is important. He recognises that it puts the whole team under pressure when we're playing a man short. And particularly when it's a silly interaction that's got him that yellow card.
Yeah.
But,
going down your 9 too. It's not just a man short.
Yeah.
You go down your 9 or your 10, all of a sudden you're completely out of sorts. But look, let's get back to just some more specific things. Lack, back to you. D3 opened up with 20 plus phases to score a try, then took the kickoff for another try. They had 2 tries in before the Quins had even touched the ball.
Yeah, it was a fantastic performance. I think the thing that's really standing out is, as CJ mentioned, is these guys have been out at training. They've been out at practice, which means they've started to learn the systems better. And our patterns of play really create how we try to play a fast, flat, physical style of on the gain line attacking rugby. These guys, when they can put that together and when they play that system, it creates space and it creates opportunities elsewhere on the field. And they're showing the ability to recognize that and shift the ball appropriately to where that space is and are attacking it. Mm-hmm. I thought terrific team performance. Like I said, I've got great ambitions for that D3 side this year. I think that they can really consolidate. We're midway through the season, and they can turn it on and bring it home and give themselves an opportunity to make the playoffs at the end of the season.
Yeah,
Well,
and look, another thing is obviously I think we have to give a lot of kudos and what's the word I'm looking for? But we need to really talk about the other coaches too. I think Edwin and Zippy and Heller's been helping out a lot. I think they've done a really, I mean, those are the guys who are spending the most time with the D2, D3 teams. And I think, they've done a tremendous job. And I think it would be great if we had them on here at some stage, but they've done a really, really phenomenal job too. So I think we've got a good system in place now. We work well together as a staff, I think. And I think we're starting to see the dividends now. And it's coming together and I love it. It's always good to see the Huns as a club doing really well.
Well, I appreciate you doing that because I'm impressed with those guys showing up and doing so much too. And isn't Zinzan a little bit of a coach on the field for these guys, having played MLR and with his experience? Or
yeah, of course he is. Zinny always has an opinion, but I must say I love it. It's nice to have Zinny there so I can bounce ideas off of. And he's great as a leader. To have him on the field is massive.
And he's managing the game.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of pressure, off of a lot of the other players to just focus on their game, and Zinny can manage it from there. And I think he's done a phenomenal job with that so far since he's come in. And just hope it continues, and hope that kind of leadership role within him just continue to grow.
I would just echo those comments. I'm massively impressed with him. He's a terrific young man, but we've got several good leaders in the club. Oh, yeah. I think what stands out for me and what I'm certainly in my position as head coach is trying to facilitate an environment where this is an athlete or player-led environment. That's very much what's unique about this rugby club, that everybody takes ownership and responsibility. And that's something that I'm always looking for, the input and getting our game drivers on board and communicating, which they do. They take responsibility. They review game film. They put down notes. So that's all positive to a player, athlete-centered, led environment, which is ultimately what this game's about. This is what's unique about this sport. That when the kickoff starts, there's nothing that we can do as coaches from the sideline, and doing any voicing or coaching is not paramount to success. The players have to make and live and learn by the decisions. And that's ultimately what I believe I'm trying to do here with this coaching group, is we're trying to develop the decision-making abilities of every single one of our players so that they ultimately make the right decisions when they're under pressure and they can execute in the game environment.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because as a board member, we talk a lot about we want this to be a player-driven club and political environment. Like, the players have a say in everything we do. A lot of clubs aren't like that. They're a little more autocratic, top-down. I'm not going to mention any names, but you and I had a conversation about this at the 50th, that egos running things behind the scenes were so big that you couldn't get anything done on the field. We try to be exactly the opposite. D2 was so dominant in every way, it's hard to talk about it. I mean, seriously, they were incredible. D1, as a scrummy, I saw 2 or 3 rolling maul tries, which I know are dear to your heart. And there was a scrum at the end of the game where they knocked on, and we had a 5-meter scrum at the defensive end of the field. And we took our time and drew a penalty so that we could kick out with no pressure. As a scrummy, that's a really high IQ moment. We'll get to the backs in a second, but talk to me a little bit about those things and how you've helped bring this to the thought process for the team.
Well, thanks, mate. I mean, I definitely have a passion for mauling. I think what I recognized when I came into the club is there's a tremendous IQ. There's a tremendous rugby IQ in the club, and even a great EQ within the club. And that goes towards us being successful. They play with patience. They play with good common sense. That was a terrific moment that you're talking about. Before we talk a bit more about D1, I want to recognize D2. That was a great performance. And that DARC, that Dallas Athletic Rugby Club, They had a pretty big forward pack, and our forwards stood up on the day, kept them from crossing the gain line consistently, and then played our pattern. And really, it was our backs that tore them apart, tore them to shreds. And that's something that I think the club is very proud of. I know that I recognised early on that we do have tremendous strength, and part of this is the great coaching that CJ's done. We've got great backs in the rugby club, and we're probably known these days for our attack and our width in attack. And one of the things I wanted to be, that I was conscious of, is I wanted to develop our forward side of the game. We need to improve our forwards play, and we're making progress in the right direction, and seeing that forward pack dominate and stop that bigger forward pack on Saturday was heartening. And then that in itself provides that front foot ball, which gives the backs even better opportunity to attack when they're coming onto the ball. So it was a tremendous performance. I was pleased with the depth that we're generating in the club. I don't think we've got an issue. We've got enough players. We've got the depth there. We started the season out with the goal of 90 for 50. 50th being our 50th anniversary, but we wanted 90 players sipped before the start of the season, and we did that. And now we're getting consistency at training. So that squad in itself, that team is now developing. They had a tough loss the week before up in Fort Worth. It was tough traveling away, and they competed very well for a half of the game. But it was a story of us when we play some of these top level sides. We've got to get a little bit more confidence. We've got to get a little bit more self-belief that we're actually there. We're there and abouts. We're in the picture. We're in the frame, and we can compete with all these top sides. And that was a great confidence boost for that D2 side. It certainly gave me great heart to see them, the way they performed and played on Saturday.
Look, I'm with you 100%. I watched 5 rugby matches on Saturday. I watched the 2 Six Nations, then I plugged in the Huns. I just told my wife, this is a rugby day, and it was amazing. Thanks to Heller and his entire team for the streaming. Mm-hmm. And again, as a scrummy, when I see our scrum dominated, and with the blacks and the reds, it's going to be back and forth probably. Mm-hmm. But when I see the scrum doing that, I can't tell you what it means to me. Now, yeah. Let's finish with D1 on your side, Lack, and then we'll go to CJ. Those 2 or 3 rolling maul tries, I know that's something you emphasize from the get, that high IQ try at our defensive end, and so many other examples. Who was your captain on Saturday? And talk a little bit about the scrum and the team at the D1 level.
Well, our club captain, Biff, unfortunately, was unavailable. He was work. And so Zinzan, our vice captain, he was the captain for the match day. And Phil Hansen, who played loosehead prop for us, he was our vice captain and forward leader. And he did a terrific job. I thought he had an outstanding game. As same with Red Coleman, I thought he was one of our best players. In fact, it was a complete team performance. I thought Des Alvery was a mastermind in the line-out. We stole several line-out ball off them. And that's part of my goal of us improving our forwards play so we can get up and match the quality of backs that we have available to us in the club. And that scrum that you talked about is a perfect example of a really good high rugby IQ. I actually challenged the boys at halftime, the forward pack. I said to them, we haven't really put an 8-man together. We haven't put enough pressure on their scrum, and we need to start putting more pressure. Even if we don't get the turnover, it makes a dirty ball, which makes it they're taking the ball on the back foot. So, and that all comes from us working collectively as a unit and attacking their set piece. And so for them at that crucial moment in time when, some teams could have just had a scrum there deep in their own half, ball came out and maybe sent it out through the back lines and attacked in the midfield, but we're still playing in the wrong end of the field. They were smart enough to come together before the scrum went down to actually collectively say, right, let's really put in a big effort on this scrum here. Let's hold the ball in the back and keep driving them and see if we can generate a penalty. And we've been smart that way. That's part of our attacking mindset with our mauling. We don't, if we can get down close to the try line, we know that that's a weapon that we've got. we can use to our advantage. But we can also use it in other parts of the field as well to generate penalties if the opposition tries to drag us down or doesn't compete fairly with those driving mauls. And everybody's learning their roles, everyone's learning their responsibilities, and it's coming together. It's a good attacking weapon for us. And it's not like the opposition haven't picked up on it. I mean, Quins sacked us, the very first driving maul of the day. The Quins sacked us successfully. So that meant that we needed to readjust our foot speed, make sure that we came in, took the ball down, formed the pack, formed the maul first, and then together got a sink and a drive, and then took the maul down the field. We got, rather than driving too early. And the guys are playing really smart rugby. And I hats off to them. You know, it's a pleasure to watch. And these are the things. I mean, I can say to them after the fact, which is where the coaching comes into it. You know, if you had regardless of what the situation might be, I'd say to them, if you had that opportunity again, what would you do? And then their response and their answer tells me whether or not they understood what was actually happening in that moment, whether it was a technical or as a tactical issue. And then their answer tells me which one of those is the answer and which one we need to work on for their understanding.
I noticed that Justice Delibovi wasn't in any of the lineups. Is he injured?
He was unavailable as well. So that was him and John Little, two big losses for us. But having the pack respond, and Matthew Mitchell was tremendous. He stood up for us at tight head prop and played a good 65 minutes of that D1 game, having brought him up from D2. So he was seamless, and his effort was well rewarded. I mean, he's just one of several guys who put their hand up on Saturday to ensure success.
Coach, you know, if you talk to Adam Scheidler, and we'll go to CJ after I say this, if you talk to Adam Scheidler, he would tell you that in his opinion, Matt Mitchell is the best scrummaging prop we have. And, you know, in the comments after that scrum where we drew the penalty, I wrote great scrum. He goes, Matt Mitchell. So it's really great to see our club chairman get a call up to D1 and distinguish himself well. CJ, back to you. I am thrilled with what I'm seeing with our backs moving the ball. I'm blown away by Austin Willis. I can't even say he's punching above his weight anymore because he does it every weekend. We're getting the ball wide. Who's that new kid on the wing? Corey, but Anthony is running wild out there. In fact, it seems like he's out running with support a little bit, you know, at times. Just he's going crazy. But how do you feel about what's going on with the backs? You can talk in general terms about D2, even though you didn't see the match, but you did see D1. How are we coming along in the back line, and what's in store for us in the future?
Before, Bill, I get into that, I think, Coach Locke, you'd like to talk about Coach Hayes' influence as well, kind of on the forward pack and what you guys have been doing with Coach Hay as well, because obviously I'm not spending a lot of time with the forwards, but you are. So maybe it would be, you know, before I get into that, it would be good to shed some light on Coach Hay and his work that he's done with the boys as well.
Well, and you didn't mention Coach Hay a minute ago, so we do need to recognize Andrew Hay, who not only does great things for us on the field, but does a million things behind the scenes to keep us organized.
Yeah, Andrew's a fantastic member of our coaching panel. I mean, we've worked together very well, everybody, and that's part of my my belief anyway, that this is a collective group of trying to put this together. We're trying to make sure that our training sessions are entertaining, that they're fun, and I've had positive feedback from the players that they're enjoying themselves, and Andrew's a big part of that. He's our set piece coach. And I mean, a lot of the work from the scrum and a lot of the work from the line-out goes back to the work that he's done drilling those guys. And he's been a tremendous asset for us in the club and in the coaching group. So, you know, hats off to Andrew.
We got a lot of great volunteers, you know. If you think about all the old boys that show up and coach youth rugby on Saturday, guys that used to play for the Huns, all the people that have helped Wheezy build that beautiful new party structure with TVs and yeah, the big tent, I believe they're calling it. It's amazing. But back to you, CJ. Talk to me a little bit about what you're trying to achieve with the backs, what you are achieving. You know, again, it looks like really smart rugby to me and fun rugby. And I just love watching the guys run all over the field, and they're not slinging the ball around loosely, which we used to have a habit of doing. It's all very structured and organized. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing there with those guys.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm hugely impressed. I wish I could take all the credit. I think we have a very good unit this year, which makes a big difference. It makes my life a lot easier as far as coaching goes. But it's all the way down. Like we said, from D1 all the way down to D3, it's very competitive. And there's guys playing D2 that on a different year, with a couple of players missing, they'd be D1 players. And although, you know, disappointing not to be D1, having that competition breeds a good environment for creating better players and a high performance environment where you get improvement really easily and quickly. What I've really enjoyed about the way our backs have kind of gone about this year is improving IQ mainly and picking up on small cues or triggers on attack to kind of focus on what we're trying to look for or what we're trying to do. And that's helped massively, again, to have Zinni around and adding guys like Case Fleck into the squad, who's also a phenomenal player who's got great vision. And then seeing guys like Austin Willis, who just, you know, built on a really good year last year and has basically even gone up another level. I think he's gotten smarter. His play's gotten even more efficient. And from a 12, that's all you want really, is really, really good efficiency, very little mistakes. And he's brought that in abundance to us. And it's great to see him become a leader too and really add a voice to things on the field as things have gone. So no, for me, I'm really happy. I'm glad the guys are starting to pick up on those attack cues a bit more. I don't want to go into too many details. I can't give away what it is we're looking for in opposition teams, but we do have certain cues we try and pick up on, you know, whether it's narrow or wide attack. And then we try and attack certain zones depending on that. But the guys have done a phenomenal job. I think our sessions have done a good job of recreating those scenarios. And then the guys have basically learned from mistakes and built on it. And I think the guys being hard on themselves, like Coach Locke says, being a bit more player driven and having the guys take ownership for some of their own training sessions and things like that has really built a situation where, you know, guys are competing with each other and they know they're competing with each other and they're trying to outperform each other in every drill or match day that we end up playing. So I'm really proud of where the guys are at. I hope we continue to build on it. I'm really sad about what happened to Tyler because he had just stepped in and he's, again, a fantastic leader and a great guy. But just really, really happy that he's obviously on the mend and feeling good. But I think we're in a good place. I hope we can continue to build in the years to come. But I'm excited for the Blacks and the Reds. And again, just to test where we're at and to see if we can just have a couple of different attack options up our sleeve that we could surprise them with. So we'll see.
Well, beating Rugby HTX was no small feat. That's an all-star team. They're heavily recruited. They think they have a shot to go pro someday. Beating them is great. The Quins are much improved. I thought they were a much improved side. We handled them pretty well, but the next couple matches are the Reds and the Blacks back to the heavyweights. And, you know, we play the Reds tough no matter what, and they're the defending national champions. And I don't know if the Blacks have ever been stronger than they are right now. They've recruited very, very well. So yeah, it's serious rugby time. We have a tough league, and you know, Lack, you're going to be working hard in training. You know, what are your messages to the guys, kind of as we begin to close this episode of the Oldcast down for the next few weeks?
Well, I think we're in a really good place in the club. I think that we're consistently working hard to generate good performances. I thought, you know, when we played the Dallas Reds, we played them in pretty wet and muddy conditions, rainy, muddy conditions, and that played into their more forward pack structured, dominated style of play. I think if we get them on a dry day, on a dry track, I think we can create lots of opportunities. And I think that's a game that we feel that we've got every chance to get a win. So that's the build-up going forward over the next 2 weeks. We've got 2 weeks preparation. So we've got 4 really good training sessions we want to get under our belt. And I think the attitude from everybody is we feel like our time is due. It's our time now to shine. and we're starting to play together well, particularly D1 as a team. They're starting to function, play really good 15-man rugby. Everybody's starting to understand their roles and their responsibilities. So we've got every opportunity. I thought we let ourselves down against the Blacks. The score was indicated that by the end of the game. We were competitive for 40 minutes, and then we took our foot off the accelerator. And that's something that we'll learn from. And I think this team has bounced back from those two losses. We're now 3-2, and so everything's to play for. These two games are in our control what the outcome is. It all depends on the level of performance that we can put together on the day, and that means how much we prepare and how well we prepare going into those matches, and that's the key there. And that means players showing up at training and performing.
Is Australia better with Eddie Jones?
Oh wow! Yeah. Well, let's see. I mean, Eddie can talk a great game. The Wallabies, unfortunately, have not fired in the last couple of seasons. Although I feel for Dave Rennie. I think they had tremendous injuries, huge injury count, and that needs to be looked at. Why we suffered. It wasn't just that sometimes that happens. It was an unbelievably large amount of injuries there.
And no Hooper. No Hooper out, taking a sabbatical, taking some mental health time off, which is really important to make sure that he was in the right headspace to perform and train week in and week out. The Wallabies will always step it up come World Cup time. They've got a favourable draw with this World Cup as well, and who knows if they can meet England in the quarterfinals. Based on England's recent performance on Saturday, they've got every opportunity to book themselves a Final Four spot. That shameful delay short arm penalty that cost them against the Blacks, I think it was shameful to the player, in my opinion. That would not have happened if Hooper had been there and there was some leadership, in my opinion. I think they lost a lot of leadership with Hooper taking a sabbatical, and I applaud him for doing it. But it just seemed to me that the team lacked on-field true leadership. And I'm looking forward to him coming back. I'm not a big Eddie Jones fan. I don't know that that's going to be the answer, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to be the answer either. Eddie will, knowing Eddie, what he will do is he will try to have the fittest team at the World Cup. So I know those guys are in for some starch. They're going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to really be fit because his attitude is the fittest team wins. But whether technically they need to be consistent with their performances. They've only got 5 test matches to prepare before this World Cup, and it'll be a big ask if they can beat the All Blacks. They talk a good game these days, but it'll be about whether they can produce on the day.
Too much whining at the ref, in my opinion. That substitute scrum half in particular. CJ, what's wrong with South Africa Sevens?
It's a good thing I'm not a huge Sevens fan, Bill, because remember, we just changed coaches, hey? So we only changed coaches, I think it was at the beginning of this new series. We ended up replacing our coaches. So I think it's a bit of a transition time in SA Sevens rugby, which I think is fine. You have to go through kind of new cycles. I think Australia, not talking about Sevens now, talking about the Wallaby side and the whole Dave Rennie situation. I feel for Dave Rennie because I've been on that side of things when things don't go well and you lose your job in coaching. It's terrible. But for him, especially when the Wallabies are kind of in a transitional period where they kind of, the old guard is leaving and the new guard's coming in, and they just didn't give him time to really build. And it's unfortunate. And to lose your job just before a World Cup like that it's heartbreaking. You've kind of built everything for that World Cup and now, you're gone. So anyway, back to the SA rugby. I don't know. I think we'll come good. We have so much talent with our high performance institute down in Stellenbosch is fantastic. So I'm sure within, probably by the end of this kind of cycle of the series, I'm sure that the boys will be playing again at a high caliber and be competing for the gold medal again. But right now, I think they just need to kind of figure things out, and the new coaching staff have to kind of figure things out. So it'll take a little bit of time.
Ireland and France are really impressive. I mean, I realize Italy gave France a really good match, and good for Italy, who's improved. But you watch France play right now, and it reminds me of the France of old. You know, a lot of physicality, a lot of flair. Ireland, man, a lot of power rugby, and they make that kick chase and the power rugby work. Do you think South Africa is going to be able to rise again, like by the World Cup?
I'm going to call it now. They've peaked early again. So Ireland and France have peaked early again. And I feel France is going to be under huge pressure to win it at home. I don't think they'll be able to keep that pressure. Is going to be massive in France to try and win the World Cup. So, I mean, I think we'll be fine. I'm not worried about us. Same as like Locke said, I feel like the Southern Hemisphere sides just go to a different level. When we played World Cups, everything just becomes way, way tougher, way harder. So I'm pretty confident we'll go far in the World Cup, whether it's a semi or a final. I'm pretty confident we can go far and even win it if things go well and everyone plays together. It's just, you know, all our players fit. Is Etzebeth fit? Is Lacanio fit? Guys like that, you know, you lose 2 or 3 of those world-class players, and all of a sudden, you know, your team isn't near as potent as it was before. So,
you know, I enjoyed watching them run with the ball. They beat people up for like 60 minutes, and all of a sudden the wings are scoring tries. It wasn't the old South Africa that would win with only kicks. They did both, and England was grumbling about the way they play after the last World Cup. I'm like, what are you talking about? They scored 3 tries.
It's one of the highest scoring World Cup finals. You know, I think England are just sour grapes because they played their final against New Zealand, and then they came up against the South African side that just wasn't going to compromise anything. And yeah, unfortunately, they just got the hell beat out of them, and now they're sour grapes about it. You know.
So you're picking South Africa.
Oh, I have to. I'll always pick South Africa. Even if we're terrible, I'm going to pick South Africa. I'm sure Locke would say the same about Australia.
Coach Lack, you picking Australia?
I'm going to give them. They're underdogs. I'll be supporting them. But I mean, I think back to the last time this World Cup was played in France. I mean, yes, France didn't perform then. South Africa did. South Africa had a tremendously strong side back then. So I expect them to be right up there. I'll wait and see how New Zealand are going. They're always going to be there and abouts. They got a bit of an old side. It depends on how they perform through the rest of this year. But I think Ireland is probably the team with the best outside shot of causing an upset. So I'll go with the Wallabies for an upset to maybe get to the final 4. But I think it'll be one of those Southern Hemisphere giants, South Africa or New Zealand, that'll be playing in the final.
You know, I was in Argentina for that last French-hosted World Cup, and Argentina beat France twice in that World Cup, at the first match and for 4th place. And the bars in the streets, it's not even their favorite sport, but the country went crazy for rugby. And that, if you think about it, it's when Argentina, that's when they began entering the rugby championship and trying to improve their game. It was a real launching pad for them to step up into the top tier.
For sure.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Locke. Sorry, go ahead, Locke.
No, you're right, mate. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, another team to look out for, not right now. I don't think this World Cup yet. It's too early for them. But Italy is an extremely young and competitive team already. So I think at the next World Cup cycle, it's going to be very interesting. And even the 6 nations coming in the next 2-3 years, kind of how Italy performs, because they're really starting to look like a serious rugby side that looks really well organized. And you know, the Italy of old, they would be competitive for the first 40 minutes, first 50 minutes, and then you would blow them out, you know, they'd fall apart. But this team just isn't that. They just look at different beasts now where they're going to play you a full 80 and they're going to give it everything. So I think that'll be a good team to kind of look out for and a dark horse in the future. But I think for now, like Locke said, I think the big giants are the ones to really look. And Ireland on their day can beat any team comfortably. Like if their defense is on song, they are nearly impossible to score against. And we've seen it against New Zealand and against South Africa. So I mean, I you know, Ireland's one that you could definitely watch, and then France are amazing to watch and good fun. I can see it happening again. It's going to be that Dr. Jekyll and Hyde thing where it's just one game they're putting 50, 60 points up, and then the next game they lose to like an Argentina. So I don't know. It's going to be a fun World Cup. I'm excited because it's the first one that I can think of in a long time where I feel like the playing field is more even than I think it's ever been. New Zealand look very vulnerable, which you don't see often. New Zealand normally look imperious going into a World Cup. And this is the first one I can remember where they actually look very, very vulnerable. So it's going to be very interesting to kind of see how this all plays out.
It's kind of fun to see the fact that there are 5 or so teams, 6 or so teams that are at a top level, not just one team. And I just want to say that Italian fly half is sick. That kid makes plays. That kid makes
Capruso?
I forget the little guy.
He's the 15. He's the 15.
He's the 15?
Yeah, he was the breakout player this year in the IRB. I mean, he is a phenomenal. He's such a talented player.
He's fun to watch.
He was the one that scored that wonderful try when they beat the.
Yeah, he's top class. He's top class already. I mean, I was watching him playing in France a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, he's playing in the French league, and he looks, even for his size, he doesn't look like he's getting muscled or dominated physically. He just looks like he's just a natural rugby player. Just completely natural at it.
Well, we're really blessed to have both you guys. The Huns are in a real renaissance right now in a lot of ways. CJ, you were a part of the national championship team, and obviously we had some rebuilding to do after that. And we were very competitive in the COVID year when some of the other teams didn't bring in a bunch of ringers. We actually had the top record in the table that year. And we're rebuilding a little bit with players, but you look at our 50th anniversary party, the trip to Argentina, the fact that we're coming together now. I think December games personally are too soon. I think everything should be in the spring.
Agreed.
We're coming together now, and to have the performances on Saturday, it just warmed my heart. I mean, we spend a lot of time, you're on the board with me, we spend a lot of time behind the scenes trying to give the players a platform. I think Austin Willis is off to a good start as director of rugby. Zinni is a huge addition. CJ coming back, not this CJ on camera, but the other CJ, Corey Jones. So many good things, and I really appreciate the coaching work that you're doing top to bottom with our assistant coaches. Let's list them again. Andrew Hay, Zippy, Edwin, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Nuri, I mean, that's the best I have.
Edwin Nuri.
Yeah.
And I'm missing somebody still, aren't I? Zippy.
And Hiller as well.
And Andrew Hiller. Yeah, Hiller's helped out as well. And Pat, I mean, even Pat's Coleman's been helping out with the coaching too at D2 and D3 level as well.
How do you guys get along, South Africa and Australia? I mean, isn't there just a little bit of a natural conflict there?
We don't talk about that, Will. We just avoid that. We talk about the Huns and the Huns only.
Exactly. Exactly. You're trying to stir the pot. That's all you're doing, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Bill's just trying to stir. There's no need for that.
I'm stirring the pot a little bit.
Yeah.
The Huns have always been a group of guys that really cares about our camaraderie. It's almost like that part's first. And I'm not saying the partying, I'm saying just the camaraderie. And yes, we care about rugby, but we're not a mercenary team, and we're not a mercenary culture. And so when you see us coming together like we did on Saturday, just a bunch of regular guys that love rugby, playing rugby, it's amazing. And, if Japan can beat South Africa in the World Cup, I think it just shows us anything is possible. And I'm looking forward to these next couple matches against the Blacks and the Reds. They're going to be incredible tests.
Yeah, I think if we keep building, I mean, my goal, long-term goal, is to keep to develop the forward play in the club. That's where we've got to raise ourselves. That's the standard. We've got to get stronger with our forward play, and then that will enhance our back play as a club. And the more that we give ownership and responsibility to the players, the more the players take on board, the more that they get control around making the right decisions under pressure in the moment.
Well, as we close, I want to thank Latchkey for their sponsorship. Biff brought us Latchkey as a sponsor. They give us money. We need to support them. So go to Latchkey anytime you want to go out and have a few beers with your guys. Hopefully Heller can put a Latchkey logo on this somewhere. But Latchkey is one of our great sponsors. I've highlighted 512 Solar before. Harold Hoffman and the Marie Company, that's a sponsor year in, year out. Of course, Austin Beer Works gives us hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars of beer every year, and you almost can't have rugby without beer. So we're really blessed with the sponsors we have. And if I miss somebody, I apologize. We'll pick you up on the next Oldcast. Fellas, I think that about does it, unless you have anything else you want to get off your chest. Lack, you got anything?
Mate, no, I'm just really excited about where we're at the club at this stage of the season. I think we've been consistent with our performances, and we've got to keep grinding away. CJ alluded to that earlier on. Our message through the coaching staff to the players is that we need to keep grinding for each other and keep applying ourselves. And if we do that, then we will create success.
Outstanding. CJ, any final words?
No, just echo what Coach Locke says. I think we're in a fantastic place, and things are moving in the right direction, and have been for a while now, and testament to the club. And I think from top to bottom, I think the board's doing a great job of steering the club in a good direction. And we're trying to, obviously, from a coaching staff perspective, create a situation where we kind of have a high performance environment where players are competitive and improving on a daily and training basis. And I think we're seeing it, and we're seeing the fruits of that. And no, I feel very proud of where we're at, and I just hope it continues to grow. And I hope the players are enjoying it, and I hope that they'll continue to tell friends and co-workers to come out and continue playing for the Huns, and keep building this club as strong as we possibly can.
Well, if Saturday last doesn't get players, coaches, and fans and supporters excited about Huns rugby, nothing will. Thanks for making some time today, guys. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Lack, I can't wait to see you again. I met you at the reunion. We didn't get a whole lot of chance to talk, but I'll be out for Old Timers Day, and
Excellent.
Really looking forward to it. Thanks for everything you're doing.
You appreciate it, mate. It's my pleasure, my honor. Thank you very much.
Well, we're honored too. So all we're going to say now is close it out with Huns.
Go Huns.